Yes. Okay. So again, my name is Kay, Kay Shimada. You could call me Kay. I grew up in the States, so maybe that's one of the reasons that I may be one of the very few Japanese people you come across that speak fluent English. Um, I've been around. After coming to Japan at age 15, I've basically been working for companies in Japan. I started off my career at Panasonic, moved on to Lucent Technologies, joined a mobile startup called Cybert. I ran my own mobile strategy agency for 7 years before moving to Japan's largest advertising agency called Dentsu. I was the global innovation director there, and actually, one of my most frequent visited cities was actually Vienna. And so that's how I became in love with Austria back in 2015, 2016. And yeah, Grüner Veltliner is my wine of choice right now. I moved over to IBM and headed a co-creation lab for 3.5 years at IBM Japan. And I am the managing director now at a technology agency called RGA. I'm one of the very few Japanese people who've been on stage at events around the globe. And I've been mentoring since 2010, 2011. I also am an angel investor in 7 startups in 5 countries. One actually happens to be in mobility. Exciting times. Some awards that I've won. I won a CS Innovation Award 2 years ago. I've also won the Cannes Innovation Cannes Innovation Award a few years ago as well. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. So we're going to dive into what is a pitch deck. So I guess everybody has been pitching, at events for a while now. I've been checking your email addresses, and I've been peeking into your websites, and I do feel that you are all established startups. But once again, I just want to make sure that everybody understands what a pitch deck is. I would define it as a brief presentation that outlines a business plan, and its primary goal is to secure your next meeting. The thing is, a lot of people tend to put everything in the pitch deck and go through it at lightning speed, and that's not the intention of a pitch deck. You need to basically reach out to an audience that will basically summon you to a next meeting. So just keep this in mind as we go forwards in our presentation today. A lot of people, when you become established, same for me, right? You get a little arrogant, right? You are pitching your stuff, you're pitching your product, you're pitching your solution. You expect the audience to understand what you're talking about. But then again, you are pitching for a reason, right? So I always ask, is your pitch intended for a VC? Is it intended for a business partner, or is it intended to basically grow your client list? Because the objective of your pitch should differ from the intended audience. So for example, if you're going after fundraising, of course, you're going to talk to VC. If you're going to product pitch, right, you're looking for obviously a business partner or, a local office or something, right? Yeah. And of course, if you just want pure exposure, there is no ask. You just want to basically pitch your solution, your product, and let the word out there. A lot of people that I come across, even if they're established speakers and are experienced with pitches, they tend to have very noisy pitch decks. You need to remind yourself you are the main presenter, and don't let the presentation be louder than you. So what I mean by saying a presentation is louder than you, it's like this, right? If you have a lot of text, right, you're basically asking the audience to read all the text. And a lot of people out there in the audience, when they start reading, they're not going to be listening. They'll lose concentration. So you want to be sure that you are louder than your presentation, and your presentation is basically more silent in view. So I would define, for example, the presenter and the deck as you and the assistant, and that would be the full package, right? So you are the one who everybody wants to basically focus on, and your assistant has bits and pieces of information that I'll talk about later, so that will back up or support what you're talking about. And this, as a total package, should be 100%. Again, even if you're an established speaker or presenter or a pitcher, right? Sometimes you forget to set the tone. I always ask, why should an audience care to listen to you? Because you are not the only one on stage on a particular day, right? If it's a pitch day, right, you're one of many. And you want to be sure that people will concentrate on you and others, of course, right? But you want to gather concentration, right? And I always say you have 30 seconds in the beginning to captivate your audience. If you miss that, forget about the remaining 3.5 minutes, 4.5 minutes, 10 minutes, what have you, because you're only one of 5, 10 people on stage pitching that day. You should always start off, my recommendation, you might have different opinions, but my recommendation of looking after 5,000 to 6,000 startup decks, I would recommend that you always start with the problem that your company is solving. If you start off with saying, we're an established startup, we have offices in 15 countries, and this is our product, forget about it. It's just a product pitch, it's a solution pitch. People are not interested. If you start from a problem or an issue that is relevant to the audience, people will say, you're talking about something that is stuck in my head and I want to solve. So that's how you gather concentration. Avoid distractions. This happens with many startups. Some notable distractions are too many color schemes, inconsistent font sizes, and animations. Sometimes animations won't work, right? And if that animation doesn't work, it's going to throw you off and you'll lose a few seconds on stage. And if you have only 3 minutes or 5 minutes, a second is extremely valuable. So you want to be sure that you're avoiding these distractions.
Sorry,
the other reasons for this.
Can I,
yes.
One question. What do you mean by animations? You mean these animations from PowerPoint when you turn this
Yes.
the text in something like this, or videos?
Yes, correct. Yes, correct, Peter. I'm not talking about videos or video clips or.
Okay, thank you. I understand it. Yes, it's right. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
This
right.
20 years or 30 years ago, it was with this text animations. Yeah. Okay, I understand. I remember it still.
Okay. All right. Because the thing is, right, if you cause one distraction, especially you're talking to an audience that is non-English speaking, right? If you cause a distraction, you're going to leave the audience behind at that moment. You want to be sure that it's crystal clear and flawless. Okay. Clarity. Especially when you're talking to an audience, for example, in Japan, right? Visuals will always help digest content in a very short time or a given time. So maybe you all already use these, but bullet points, brackets, diagrams, graphs, flowcharts, any kind of visual will help digest content more smoothly. The thing is, right, don't write sentences, because if you write sentences, in most cases, you're going to read the same sentence, or you're going to basically talk out loud, right? And that's a waste of space on a presentation, and it's also redundant. You want to be able to avoid that as well. Yeah, so remember, Japan is a non-English speaking country. I am an exception. Aesthetics. I always have found that your audience will lose concentration with inconsistent header positions, too many color variations, complicated templates, odd placement of content, missing points and statements. Some presentations, for example, have a title in the middle at the top. Sometimes you move it to the left and right. The thing is, right, you're talking to an audience that you need them to concentrate, right? And if you cause unnecessary issues or questions, right, then they're going to lose concentration and you are going to lose them. So Be consistent. I shouldn't be telling you guys this. You guys probably have gone through this, but for very early stage startups who want to get a pitch deck right, they create these odd templates. So I always say, don't be shy and don't be embarrassed to use the templates on PowerPoint or on Keynote, because they're actually made very, very well. Flow. So a pitch is best pitched when you're a good storyteller. And this is basically a typical flow, which I feel is a template for good pitching. You start off with problem and statistics and tell them why this issue should matter to the audience. And you basically have 30 seconds to captivate the audience here. If you get through that, then you talk about your solution, how unique it is, the market that you're addressing, who's your competitor, what's your product roadmap, who's the enabling team behind it, what's the track record, do you have patents, have you been endorsed, have you won awards? And I've highlighted ask because a lot of startups say, thank you for listening, right? You're on stage targeting a particular audience to get something out of them, right? Don't end your pitch by saying, thank you for listening. Be sure that you have a clear ask. For example, you could say, we're looking for fundraising, or we're looking to open an office here in Japan. We're looking for partners. We're looking for local representatives. There's something that everybody is looking for. Don't be shy to put that in your presentation because this is global, right? If you end the pitch by saying, thank you for listening, people wouldn't care. So on that last page, be sure that you have the ask and your contact, because the last page is what you'll be leaving the audience with. So for example, if you're looking for a local contact, your name and an email address should be there, because people will be snapping their phones. They'll be taking a picture or a screenshot of that last page, because if they're interested, they'll be inviting you to the next meeting that they want to have with you. Also, flow. This is typical of, for example, Japan as well. You need to understand how your audience will read your slides. Sometimes title content will be all over the place, but typically, if you have a very standard deck, people will read the slide from left to right. If you have the title on the top, it'll be top, bottom, left, right. And again, top down, left-hand side content, right-hand side content. It'll be top left, bottom right, top left, bottom right. So if you are targeting a non-English speaking country, especially Japan, I know this is very textbook, but don't do anything odd because you're going to lose the audience. Credibility. I always say, don't let your audience question your legitimacy. If you have stats up there, be sure that you have your sources. If you're building a prototype, have pictures. If you have working products, have videos, and have a very brief bio of the team as well. I'm very sure you'll all have it. Okay, this I always emphasize for non-Japanese companies or startups coming into Japan. I always say, who cares if you're established in your market? You're about to enter theirs, in this case, Japan. You need to show the audience that you're serious about Japan's market by converting to local currency. Don't show euros. People will not understand euros, okay? Use local market statistics to show them how big the market is, what the opportunity is. Show them that you understand local customs. Show them that you understand regulations, and show the audience that you understand local competition. Because unless you understand all of this, people will say, why bother coming to Japan? You already have a competitor that's doing the same. And they speak Japanese, by the way. So this is the relevance that I would really emphasize for global startups who will want to come to Japan. So whatever your story, it should be easily digestible. evenly paced, especially for a Japanese audience. You don't want to speak really fast. You want to be evenly paced. You want to be talking at a speed that you would converse with a person who's a non-native English speaker. And of course, knowing Austrians, you always present with confidence, so this should be a given. And this I always typically say to the Japanese people because lack of confidence, they like to read from a script. I don't think this is applicable for the Austrians here today. But I always say, yeah, pitch good and secure your next meeting. Good luck. Right, so that was basically the presentation that I wanted to give today. Again, the majority probably you know. So I'll just open up the floor for Q&A and be more than happy to answer any kind of questions for startups that are willing to come to Japan and tap into our market. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Kay.
Great,
that was
Kay.
very helpful, I think.
I think it's the best pitch manual that I see. Yeah? It's totally different because I heard already so many from these pitch decks. Yeah, we had lots of seminars and something like this from incubator programs, and you go totally different ways like this. Yeah, maybe my colleagues know already
mine's
about
very
this.
very junior.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting because the way you build up and your rules. I had always problems with their rules. Yeah, they gave us different manuals to make a pitch deck. Yeah, and I come from marketing and sales, and we made a completely different pitch deck, as they tell. But ours 80% match with your suggestions to make a perfect pitch deck. Yes, great.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Great.
All right. Any questions?
I think anyway, I take lots of things with for me to change our pitch deck. Yeah, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9 points to change our pitch deck. Yeah.
Okay. I feel good about pitching today to you all. Then that's good. I feel relieved.
I would have a question if I could jump in.
Yes, please.
Yeah, thanks also for the pitch training. It's also great to see that your pitch obviously matches all your recommendations, which is always like a credibility source. But
good one, thanks.
My question pertains to the language part. You've emphasized quite often that the language is a huge cultural benefit that Japanese people see in their own culture. And does that also mean that perhaps we should omit some more technical language in favor of simpler terms? Or is that something that they will then try and derive for themselves?
Fabian, that's a great question. I guess it all depends on, the pitch opportunity that you have. For example, if you are pitching at a event where you know that the audience is familiar with, for example, mobility, right? Then you understand that, the majority of audience will probably understand the jargon, the lingo, or the language behind, all the technical terms. So I wouldn't shy away from, using those technical terms. But if you are talking to, for example, a more general audience, right, you want to be sure that you're more adequately using, you're using the adequate language for people to understand, what you're trying to, where you're trying to pitch or what you're trying to say. So yeah, I guess it depends on the audience. I think for this next session that's coming up in Japan, I do feel that the audience are people in the mobility industry. So yeah, you could probably use technical terms that you feel are globally understood.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I can, TechBizCon, for example, if you're pitching in front of the TechBizCon audience, so I'm sure they will understand. And can I also add one question? Chiara just said it last, I think before 2 weeks ago, we had also startups from Austria, and they had great pitch decks. So they really designed, and all your recommendation was inside. And really good ones. And still, we had the feedback like there was too less information, or how to say, I see a lot of Austrian startups pitch decks which are really cool and designed, and but the Japanese say there is too less information and they want to have more technical. Is there some? I think this is really totally different between the two countries, or Europe and Japan. So what is your recommendation to have a good designed and good understandable pitch deck, but additionally to have something which also the Japanese audience want to see?
That's a great question too, Rumi-san. I wouldn't shy away of using, an adequate amount of text in technical terms. I think what may be missing is competitive advantages, or what is the cutting edge of your technology? What do you do best, and how is it applicable to the Japanese market or audience? I would feel that if that is there, then the Japanese audience would probably be very interested in having that next meeting with the startups, right? I wasn't there 2 weeks ago, unfortunately, so I'm not. It's hard to tell, but I do feel that less is more for the Japanese audience. So, using just the right amount of bullet points, graphs, diagrams, statements, and content to basically help them understand what you're talking about might be relevant. But in this case, if it's a very expert audience that is already familiar with mobility, I guess what Japanese companies want to see is more of the solution, more of the product itself. What is the competitive advantage that you're bringing to the table? Why should Japanese companies care about reaching out to that startup? So maybe emphasizing more of that, more focus on the product and solution and competitive advantage might help.
Yeah,
If
I
that
see
makes sense.
Japanese decks are sometimes really packed with all kind of
Yeah. Yeah. I always say don't use a handout as your pitch deck, because it's hard to understand, and Japanese companies tend to do so. So there's a lot of text. In a lot of cases, Japanese people just read out of the text that it's up there, right? And it's a waste of time, it's a waste of energy, and it's also a waste of opportunity as well. I tend to feel that global startups are much better in utilizing the presentation deck to show really cool images, and pictures and animations about products and solutions. That should stay there. But maybe a little more about the technical details about what I talked about: product, solutions, competitive landscape, and advantages is probably what an expert audience is looking for. Because at the end of the day, the audience is here to listen to you all at this, upcoming event, right? And they wouldn't bother coming to the event if they were not interested in what's new and what you bring to the table, right? So so talk more boldly about your offering, and that probably should be the highlight.
Okay, understand. Yeah, I just think the corporates are maybe used to see the Japanese packed handout style pitch deck, so sometimes they're confused if something coming up with less information. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Hi, Kay. This is Christian. Pleasure meeting you again.
Hi, Christian.
And yeah, thanks for the let's say reminder and refreshing the key points of a pitch. I agree that sometimes you tend to follow a beaten path, but it's not always the best, right? New market, new audience, you need to restart from scratch. I got two questions actually. The first one is, I've been pitching to at an ESG event at CAC in Tokyo 2 weeks ago. And what I recognized from all the Japanese presentations, and they were all in Japanese, by the way, is that credibility seems to be a big thing. So they all started off with more or less the first slide, providing the audience a kind of a social context, handshake photo with the president of Toyota, and giving that kind of credibility. or loading up the credibility and then moving on to problem and product and so on and so on. So is this something that you see potentially as key, or is that not as important as we're anyway non-Japanese companies?
I wouldn't say it would be important. I would always say, I would always advise to avoid pictures of handshakes with the president, or a company profile or an award that you won, because it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
What really matters is that you have a solution that really is relevant to the audience.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I would recommend always starting with confidence of addressing the issue or problem at hand, and confidently presenting your product and solution, and you basically state that you are the ones who are solving it. And afterwards, you can say, by the way, one last thing, Steve Jobs, right? I have shaked hands of the Prime Minister or something, right? It'll leave a great impression.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Then second question. We have our product addresses a problem that, or a pain of a lot of companies that also operate in Japan, Japanese companies. But the problem, how to put it, it's a little bit different in Japan, because the way car sharing is run in Japan, it's all stationary. It's not, there's no free floating, right? So still the inefficiencies of a stationary are very similar to the inefficiencies in free floating. So, but I'm going to pitch a solution that's much more, that's geared towards free floating. Should I anticipate that right from the start, saying, okay, we know what we've been doing is very much focused on free floating, but the problem exists in the stationary world as well, and that's why we would like to partner with you to show that, something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because I see that. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no. Go on, Christian.
So I see the risk that you present something and then they will check against their own pattern or search filter, right? And then they immediately will put you in the bin of, they're addressing something a problem that we don't have, because it looks different. The core of it isn't, but it looks different from the outside.
Well, I would say that's why you have to pitch well and be clear with your intentions, and basically address the competitive advantage that you're bringing to the table. If you do that, Christian, right, the thing is, a lot of Japanese people are open-minded, and they probably won't raise their hand in the audience. You'll be astonished at how Japanese audience will be very, very, very silent. Yeah. But once you start drinking, or once they go away and go home, they'll ask you for an email, and they'll send you tons of questions that will extremely annoy you. So be confident that you're bringing something to the table that might be interesting and very cutting edge. Doesn't really matter if it's not relevant from start, but if you end your pitch with something relevant and it's eye-opening, that will be your key to being invited to the next meeting.
Got it. Yeah. Thank you.
Right. Any other questions?
Maybe a more general question to body language and facial imagery. Are there any pitfalls, anything that we might do, things like eye contact or gazing around, or anything that might be perceived as negative when speaking in Japan?
No, you'll probably bring only positives. The only thing that I would recommend not to do is sometimes people place both hands in front of them and bow. Don't do that in Japan because it looks really odd. But yeah, I guess be yourself, pitch as you would do globally, because that is something that the Japanese audience would expect.
Thanks.
Right. Is everybody coming to Japan, by the way?
Yeah.
Yes.
Lucky you guys.
Yeah.
One question left. I was not at the last workshop, and I heard about this blue suit and white shirt
Regarding
story.
the dress code.
And then I see you with
cliche
jeans.
attire.
Genau, and then I see you with your jeans and your business casual, yeah, on the stage. Was it in Japan or you're the one of the first pictures of you on the stage? It was in
Oh,
Japan.
that
or?
was a no, that was a stage in Graz.
Okay,
At
it was in Graz.
yeah, in Graz. Yeah, just in your neighborhood.
Just, so we have to go with all of us have to go with blue suits and with tie and white.
No, not at
I
all,
think-
not at all.
I think it's the difference between pitching in front, pitching and going to the customer. So I was talking about if you're invited to a meeting to Japanese corporates, it may be good to wear a suit. Yeah. What is your opinion, Kay, about this?
Well, I have not worn a suit since my Dentsu days. When I ran my lab at IBM in Japan, I was taken to CEOs of, really enormous enterprises. I always went in a jeans and t-shirt and red Nike sneakers. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. And the thing is, like, people remember you for that. Even after I left IBM, people would point fingers at me and say, you're the one who went to, for example, the Toyota COO in red sneakers. And yeah, so people remember you for that. So yeah, but typically, I would say bluntly that if you're a non-Japanese person coming to Japan, and if you're a startup, right, you don't have to be in a blue suit, white shirt. Just be yourself, and be confident. And they'll remember you for the person who is, who broke sort of like the dress code. Yeah, leaving an impression is everything, right? Whether it's good or bad.
But not come with lederhosen, huh?
A little. They will remember you for this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is, I guess I think the notion of startups here in Japan is that it's run by people who have a different mindset. And if you're coming to the stage with a suit and tie, right, basically you're trying to be eyesight or eye level with the people that you're pitching to, which is not something your audience wants, right? They want something coming from a different angle. So I would recommend just, going in clothes that you feel comfortable. Maybe not necessarily pajamas, but yeah, if you feel comfortable in, like jeans and t-shirt, that's the way to go.
Okay, so it's up to you. Maybe my recommendation and Kay is different a little bit. So in this case, yeah, like Kay said, if you're not feeling comfortable in suit, so then don't do that. But if you say you feel uncomfortable to be in a meeting without a suit because everybody else is doing so, you need to decide on your own. So, yeah.
Yeah. I don't go with the flow. If everybody's in a suit, I would tend to go with red Nike sneakers, G-Star pants, and Zara shirts. Yeah. If that makes you feel better.